are so glad that you have chosen us today. Can you hear me now? All good. No, you can't hear me. They're shaking their heads. Pardon me. Hi. So we are so glad that you've chosen to join us today at our keynote event for the Indigenous Perspectives Week. My name is Randine, and I am in social work, and it is my privilege to host our event this afternoon. Just to give you a little bit of information, a little bit of background, in June 2017, the Booth UC president signed the City of Winnipeg's Indigenous Accord as part of the city's journey to reconciliation. This journey is based on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's TRC 94 Calls to Action, issued in June 2015. The TRC calls for action address the ongoing impact of residential schools on survivors and their families, and they create a platform for priority actions that will assist the reconciliation journeys in our community. The Indigenous Perspectives Awareness Campaign is an effort to address the TRC Action Number 63, in particular to building student capacity for intercultural understanding, empathy, and mutual respect, which I think all of us would agree that is why we're here today. Booth UC featured the first Indigenous Perspectives campaign in March 2019. The IPW has run during the first week of March every year since then. And we have featured guest speakers, we've had book studies, and we've done various activities such as beading workshops and blanket exercise. We've had some music, we've had some good food, we've had sharing circles, and we've had more. This year, we are very pleased to have two guest speakers join us from downtown Winnipeg neighborhood to help us gain an Indigenous perspective in our Winnipeg community. We hope that you will leave feeling informed, challenged, and motivated to become involved. I will introduce our speakers shortly, but first I invite the Booth UC Dean of Students, Rhonda Friesen, to bring our land acknowledgement and tobacco offering.
Thanks so much, Randine. As we come together here on the Booth UC campus to celebrate our Indigenous Perspectives Week, we gather on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, the Nahiawak, or Ininiwak, the Dakota Oye, and the Métis. These people have cared for and occupied this land for millennia, deriving life and meaning from its abundance. By signing Treaty 1 in 1871, these first people entered into a treaty relationship with the settlers as a way of sharing this land equitably, to create educational opportunities for their people, and to build a mutually beneficial relationship between First Nations and settlers. Over the years, the intended hope for good relationship between First Nations and settlers of this land has been forgotten and misused. We have further trespassed on the Anishinaabe community of Shoal Lake 40 First Nation by appropriating their water for our use. These remembrances are spoken, not to shame or condemn, but to create space, to learn and engage with our history, to gather wisdom from the people who came before us, and to gain courage to act against injustice wherever we encounter it. Today, we affirm our commitment to reconciling our relationship with Indigenous peoples of this land. We start by acknowledging their place in our community, their contributions to our collective well-being, and their role in bringing about a hopeful future for us all. May Creator's Spirit bless this conversation today and invite us to walk in truth and reconciliation with all our creations. All our relations, sorry. I'll move to the tobacco offering, and just for the rest of us gathered here, offering tobacco to an invited guest is a sign of kindness, reciprocity, respect, and sacrifice. Tobacco is one of 4 sacred medicines in Indigenous belief systems in this region. It is customary among the Indigenous peoples it is customary among the Indigenous peoples of Manitoba for the individual making a request to first offer tobacco to the individual from whom they are requesting knowledge. To offer tobacco first before making their request. If the individual receiving tobacco agrees to grant this request, they will take the tobacco offered. This becomes their agreement to honor the request and give what they have to offer to the inviter. So I will now offer tobacco to our guest speakers. Roeland, will you speak to us today and bring us your knowledge and perspectives about health in our community here? Thank you so much. Kyle Mason, will you speak to us today and share your knowledge and reflections and perspectives around reconciliation in our community?
Hello again. All right, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our first speaker. Brett Roeland is a Métis community member and a pharmacist with the Northway Brothers Pharmacy that's located on Selkirk Avenue in Winnipeg. Northway Brothers are a key part of the North End community, providing a wide range of services with a focus on opiate replacement therapy. They are customer-focused, and as an independent pharmacy, they're able to provide a level of service that many cannot. Among his other diverse interests, Brett enjoys refereeing professional hockey games across North America, being one of the on-ice officiants at the World Junior Championships in 2021, and he also prefers popcorn as his junk food of choice. We welcome Brett.
Thank you, Randy, for the introduction. Thank you, Rhonda, for the land acknowledgements. As mentioned, my name is Brett Roeland. I'm a community pharmacist. I graduated in 2017 from the University of Manitoba. I spent my first 4 years working in the West Broadway location. I spent about the last three and a half years in the North End community on Selkirk Avenue. I am a Métis citizen, and I am a member of the Indigenous Professional Pharmacists of Canada, and that's basically an organization that represents pharmacists, pharmacy assistants, and pharmacy technicians who have Indigenous heritage. We're quite involved in advocacy, kind of the recognition of the historical issues related to the Indigenous populations, and we're essentially a voice for other professionals and pharmacy professionals to ensure that we are aware of the past and that we're going to continue on a path towards educating ourselves and caring for everyone appropriately. I guess the reason that I'm here today is I kind of offer a unique perspective on community health itself. So, Selkirk Avenue, I grew up in the South Sea Hotel, so a little bit sheltered from the North End and the downtown community. When I first got to Northway Pharmacy Brothers, I took a drive down the street and I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into, right? Boarded up houses, kind of garbage on the streets, everything. It was a little bit out of my comfort zone. It wasn't that long until I realized that the people that I was working with and the patients in the community that I was caring for are just that. They're people, they're humans, and they're actually some of the most unique and interesting people that I've ever interacted with. I would present to my patients that, hey, I'm also Métis, and they'd kind of give me a little bit of a look, like, you're very white passing, Brett. Yes, I get that. It takes time to build that relationship and that understanding with them. And kind of the key thing that I'll relate to throughout this is the fact that they are just humans, right? Part of the role that we have in the community is definitely supporting the addictions. If anyone is in the media or looks at statistics online, the Point Douglas area and the downtown community are where the majority of the opioid overdoses and substance use related issues are currently occurring. I also operate Phoenix Recovery, which is attached to Brothers Pharmacy, and that we have 4 prescribers, and they're primarily focused on addictions care. So, we see the grassroots issues that are happening in our community on a daily basis. Between the clinic and the pharmacy, we support around 350 individuals through their path to recovery. It can be a little bit scary for someone to want to step into a community like this and kind of help and provide aid, but once we expose them to it, it's quite interesting to see the passion and the rewarding experiences that one kind of gets working with that community. We're also involved with a number of detox facilities, transitional housing. We're constantly interacting with other allied health professionals, whether that be social work, right? Physicians, nurse practitioners, kind of the whole spectrum. And the most interesting part about pharmacy and pharmacists is that we are the most accessible healthcare professional. So that's great for the patients, but it's also great for our community and the people who are supporting the same individuals. So we often have social workers who come in to our pharmacy just to check in on a patient. Our focus is really to create such a safe space that our patient population feels free sharing anything with us, and I mean anything, right? It can be trouble with the law, it can be family problems, it can be issues with children, and we strongly believe that offering a space with no judgment is actually going to help them to progress through their own life problems. So kind of what are my opinions on the state of the healthcare that's going on and the communities and the kind of the grassroots problems? I think it's very clear to us that we're kind of tackling 2 issues at once right now. We have a massive addictions problem, and we also have a massive problem with access to proper housing, really. So those are the 2 biggest things that I see day in and day out. Addiction is very, very hard to kind of treat. There's just not enough bodies out there and the availability of prescribers at the moment. The government's done a really, really good job opening up these RAM clinics. We're a private facility. We do have limitations on the number of people that we can see. The second problem is the access to housing, and that one is the government has, again, put forward a great plan to hopefully improve access to housing. Addictions and housing are basically the root cause of everything that we see. No one's going to care for their diabetes if they're worried about getting high or preventing dope sickness, right? No one is going to come in and get treatment for addiction if they get it one morning and they don't have a place to sleep the next day. If you ever walk into Brothers Pharmacy, you might find a number of people lined up on the wall sleeping, and that's just because it's a safe space, right? They might present. We have a duty to assess if they're able to take their medication, and that's purely out of safety reasons, right? But some of the lines of questioning that healthcare providers give to these people are leading questions to make them feel like they're drug seeking, not eligible for proper care, or subject to discrimination, essentially. We see a lot of these incidents pop up in the media regarding discrimination. We just had one recently with a gentleman. I just want you all to be aware that I hear 3 or 4 stories a week of the very similar thing. So what you're hearing is just the tip of the iceberg. It is happening day in and day out. And I guess I encourage all of you to approach these interactions with, economically or marginalized populations and equity-deserving groups with no judgment, and treat them like a normal human being. You'll be so shocked the relationships that you can build with some of these people. Northway Pharmacy Brothers is a community pharmacy, and the key thing is community. We are part of the community. We don't serve every patient in the community, and that's fine with me, but we do our best to make sure that community involvement is known. We will do anything, right? I encourage you all to do the same. People don't have phones, give them your phone for 10 minutes. People don't have access to internet, how about you Google a phone number for them, right? People don't have food, we'll hand them out a granola bar. People are tired because they don't have a safe place to sleep and it's -40 outside. That's okay. take a seat in the corner for 40 minutes, let us know when you're good to go. But, I don't want to dwell on all the the bad things that are happening in the community. There are a lot of good people out there that are doing a lot of good work, and I'm hopeful that a lot of people in this room will turn out to be valuable community members that could just do their part. If you're helping one person, that's one person that would not have been helped without us. Basically, all I have to add at this point, but I really do appreciate you guys inviting me to speak here today. Me speaking on what I do is very difficult. A lot of the things that I do are actionable items on a day-to-day basis. Putting those into words in front of people can be difficult at times. And I think the most important thing that we can do and kind of learn and reflect on this is that actions are the things that people are going to notice in the future. Speaking is one thing, but actually doing it, putting it into action in communities where we really do make a big difference. So, thank you.
Thank you, Brett, very much for giving us some insight into your organization, into the business, into the challenges that you face, into the uniqueness of Point Douglas, because I work in that area, so I know it quite well. I know Selkirk Avenue, and I know there are lots of great people, and I know that what people think often is completely incorrect, right? You should really try to get to know people and see people with clear eyes, because everybody really should be equal. I'd just like to take this opportunity to say that at the end, we'll leave some time for question and answers, so if you have some questions you'd like to ask, feel free to ask after the second presenter. So to introduce our second presenter, Kyle is an experienced award-winning Indigenous leader, a consultant, and a speaker with a proven track record of making a difference. Through his personal and his professional life, Kyle knows firsthand the tension between Indigenous people, Canada, and the difficult journey of reconciliation. Growing up in the north end of Winnipeg, he also knows the struggles of living in poverty and overcoming the many connected challenges. Kyle has extensive experience building nonprofits from the ground up and has been able to raise millions in donations on very limited budgets, which is extremely difficult. Kyle believes in building up the community's strengths, not the gaps, and creating safe places for people to ask questions and to learn. Kyle has been a Christian minister, the founder and the executive director of the North End Family Center, and has held senior positions with several nonprofit organizations. He's infrequently in demand as a speaker and as a consultant on reconciliation, and it is our privilege to host him at our Booth UC campus today. And Kyle's junk food preference is pizza.
Which means hello, my relatives. Because even though we may not be closely related, we are all related in one way or another. So I want to thank Booth for the invite to participate in this event today. I think it's an important step in the journey. I'm just going to take a moment as this guy takes my pictures. I always think it's very important when people and institutions and colleges and universities are wanting to build stronger knowledge bases and also stronger relationships with Indigenous communities. It is an important work, not just because it's the right thing to do, but it's also important because great harm has been done to Indigenous peoples at the hand of the colonizers that have invaded and taken over large parts of this country. So I'd like to introduce a bit about my family history. It would be inappropriate for me as an Indigenous man to talk about myself and talk about other things without first giving you an idea of how I'm connected to the land and how I'm connected to this space, and I've started with my family. So I'm a direct descendant of a gentleman named Chief Peguis. Put behind if you've rode down his freeway, or some people attended his junior high, and there's some statues around that kind of stuff. Chief Peguis was an important chief on this land who befriended some of the first settlers, colonizers that came this way. Initially, they had good relationships, and of course, we all know how that went. His son was also a signatory, and of course, his son is my great-great-grandfather, was a signatory to Treaty 1. And on my mother's side, my grandfather was a co-founder of the Manitoba Métis Federation. So no matter what side of the family you look at, my roots on this land go way, way back, long before there ever was Country Club Canada occupying this land. More recently, the son of a gentleman named Dr. Raymond Mason, he was a residential institution survivor. I do not call them schools because, as I'm hoping to learn, these things are anything but schools. But he was abducted from his family at a young age and aged out at 18, and he was deeply impacted by that. I'll speak more about that in a minute. But he went on to marry a woman named Joanne, who of course eventually became my mother. And my mother attended a day institution in her high school years. But she grew up in a community called Manigatongan, whereas my father grew up in his younger years before he was adopted. He grew up in was First Nation, to which I'm a member of. Myself, I grew up in the north end of Winnipeg with my single mother and my siblings. We often struggled to make ends meet. We would have been unhoused at different times that were there for friends and family taking us in at different points along my younger years. And there were times we had to make use of the social net, times where we had to make access of food banks and friends and family dropping in food to us to make our daily meal. After high school, I attended high school mostly in the North End, but after high school I went off and got a degree in biblical studies from a small college out of Saskatchewan, but I actually spent 1 year of that education on Booth campus. So I spent, I'm an old man now, so that was a number of years ago, but I enjoyed my time on campus. And after college, I actually, as you heard in my intro, I became a pastor. So I spent years working towards becoming a pastor because I thought that was the calling of my life. After doing it for a year, and absolutely no disrespect to the church that I was a part of, I was what you call a youth and young adult pastor for a year in a nearby community just outside Winnipeg. But after I realized, after a year, I'm not called or wired to be a pastor in a church. I realized that though I spent years working towards this, that I made a terrible mistake and that I would not belong in that church setting. So I pivoted to nonprofit management, which one of the highlights was where I founded and grew an organization called the Northway Family Center. And the Northway Family Center, when you see a picture up here, there it is. It was an organization that was on Main Street. I was the director and founder for a decade. And then I took it from the idea, I'm going to use this as a case study, I took it from a concept to opening and serving the community for a decade. And I'll show you another picture in a minute. But I wanted to talk about this as a case study because there's a lot of times where a lot of good people have the best of intentions, but are continuing the harm when it comes to interacting with Indigenous peoples. You can have good intentions and you can still do harm and you can still continue on the legacy of colonization towards our peoples. See, too many times over the decades and centuries, things have been done at us as Indigenous peoples. Ministry has been done at us. Attempts of good works have been done at us. And a lot of that stuff has been harmful. As I'm sure many of you are aware or are learning about residential institutions, colonization, a lot of things have been done at us without us having an opportunity to be a part of the journey, the work, the outreach, and the successes. So there's this old adage that we've heard time and time again, at least around the north end of Winnipeg, nothing for us without us. Gone are the days where things should be done at Indigenous peoples. particularly from a Christian point of view, because a lot of harm has been done in the name of the church, in the name of Christ, towards Indigenous peoples. Now, you might be thinking, okay, my particular stream of Christianity wasn't behind the residential institutions. We don't have that blood on our hands. But the fact is, if you are a Christian, you are part of that legacy. Because again, too many times, Christians have done things at us. And those times must stop. And if they continue, then it's wrong. Again, nothing for us without us. See, at the Northway Pharmacy Center, where this is an organization I launched about 17 years ago, and like I said, I was there for a decade, we tried to do things different. Of course, we made many mistakes. I made many mistakes. But from the beginning of a concept, I tried to do things differently in the sense that I took a year from an idea to opening the doors. I spent that year, of course, fundraising and doing all the boring work you need to do to have a legal charity, nonprofit operating in Manitoba. But more importantly, I spent a year doing a community assessment, talking with community members, holding public forums in the local group room at the local library, talking to elected leaders, talking to elders, talking to the community, talking to religious leaders, talking to as many people as possible, and asking basically 4 questions. What do you need? What do you want? What has worked? What hasn't? And out of those 4 questions, that informed all the programs and services that we eventually did at the Northway Pharmacy Center. It was 4 basic questions. What do you need? What do you want? What has worked? What hasn't? You'd imagine that that is elementary, that's common sense. But too often, too many times, those questions don't even get asked to the people you want to serve. Well, the site, when you ask those questions, you end up looking like a genius because essentially you just get to reflect back what the people want and what they're asking for. And when you do that, you actually have a really good response. See, when you don't take the time to ask those questions to the people you want to serve or you want to interact and get to know, then you're taking basically a stab in the dark. You don't know if it's going to work or not. Who here has seen organizations, ministries, outreach programs try something and fail? Yeah. That is probably because you have not taken the time to ask the people you're trying to interact and trying to get to know what they need and what they want. See, the business community knows this. The business community will not launch a store or a product or open a location or anything like that without doing their research, without talking to the community, without looking at the trends, looking at, does this product have a chance of success? Is the market looking for it? Is this something unique that isn't already being done? And if it is being done, can we do it better? So the business community spends a lot of time, energy, and money doing that. But for some reason, a lot of Christians and organizations with the best of intentions don't do that. They just do things at us. And it has caused us great harm. That is what's turned and led into the colonization and destruction of great harm of our peoples. Led to the residential institutions, led to the 60s scoop, led to the current problems of the CFS system, and so on, and so on, and so on. So if you remember nothing else from today, remember that there's nothing for us without us. I'd also have to encourage you to do away with your wants and your expectations, your measures of success. See, when you talk to the people, you talk to the community, you talk to the people you want to get to know, you can't bring your measures of success, your benchmarks. Those things have to be set by the community. So too often people look at us and they hear like, well, I mean, some Christian organizations will say, well, we need X number of people to convert to Christianity, or we need X people to do this or that. Again, you're imposing your desires, your wants, your measures of success on us. You're doing that to us. But if you didn't ask us, you ask the community, what do you need? What do you want? you will find other measures of success that have greater or lasting impact on people's lives. See, at the Northway Family Center, we function everything around the second slide, something called community living room. Here's a picture of it here. Hopefully you can see it online. And we call it the community living room because we wanted a place for the community to come, be, interact, get to know each other, and get to know us. We didn't call it a drop-in because a drop-in is not a relational term. It was a community living room. It was open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We always had the coffee on, we put a newspaper on, the radio, playing music like in the background. And this was the heart of this organization. Around this living room, we offered things practically, like we offer free laundry facilities, we offer a community phone with voicemail, computers for internet searches, resumes, going on social media, whatever. We had a community kitchen, community cupboard. We offered a long list of programs and services, again, that were informed by the community. But it was all centered around the community living room. The community. People ask, why didn't we call it up? Because like I said, it wasn't a relational term. People also asked us too, how did you come up with the name Northway Family Center? And it's a very underwhelming story. We didn't want to call it like the North End Resource Center, because that's, again, it wasn't a relational term. So the North End Family Center was just a very descriptive term. We were in the North End, engaging with families, and it was a center, North End Family Center. We didn't call it a church, we didn't call it a community center, we didn't call it an organization, and we certainly didn't call the people that came through our doors clients or participants. We called them community members or friends. Even as staff, though technically that's what we were, we didn't call ourselves staff. We were a team. And a lot of our volunteer team members were from the community that we were engaging with and getting to know. Simple things like, if you came to my office, the door was often open unless I was having a private conversation. And you didn't see Kyle Mason, Executive Director. You just saw Kyle's office. Because again, this was an organization built from the community for the community. And we always made sure that on an ongoing basis, we engage with the community and ask, is this still what you need? Is this still what you want? Is it having the impact that you want and that you expected? And if it wasn't, we adjusted, we tweaked things. Again, nothing for us without us. And when you have that mindset too, you have to do away with this idea of subconsciously or consciously of being a white savior or being a savior. You cannot come in and save us spiritually, economically, or in any kind of way. Particularly here in the North End, Winnipeg, and downtown in the West End. Yes, we have our struggles. There's no doubt about that. But the North End of Winnipeg, the West End, and the downtown is also filled with tremendous good people that want the best for themselves, for their kids and their grandkids, and for the community around them, just like you do for yourself. I was raised in that community. I still live in that community. I'm raising my son in that community. Most of my career has been based in that community. It is a wonderful community that has some struggles, but also has a lot of beauty within it. And we are tired of having people come out and come and try to save us. We want friends, we want partners, we want people to empower us, to support us, to listen to us. And also, I want to go back to my Christian pastor days. And I want to talk about the fact that from a Christian perspective, it is not your job to convert people. It is not your job to save us, to have us come to your way of thinking of your theology, your worldview. You look at the end of Matthew chapter 25, when it talks about, well, let me ask you, there are Christians that say, Mr. President, what is the end of Matthew chapter 25 talking about when it talks about when Jesus is talking about being judged? Does anybody know? Did you love people? Did you serve people? Did you look after the orphan and the widow of the stranger? Whatever you do unto people, you do unto God. But you do not see in that passage, it's like, did you convert that person to your worldview? Did they say the Lord's Prayer? Or did they get them in the right kind of church? Did you do all that kind of stuff? Basically, when Jesus talks about standing before the Creator, going into the next journey of your life, it's how you love people, how you serve people. Now, did they check off this doctrine, this doctrine, this doctrine, or anything like that? It's about loving and serving people. Period. As Christians, as social workers, as people of different worldviews and different faiths, we don't want people to tell us anymore what to do and what to believe. We want friends, we want partners. It is your job to come alongside us and to listen. Listen to what we need and what we want. And then you need to follow those instructions as a friend, as a colleague, as an empowerer, as an advocate. And when you're done with doing those things, you repeat it again. You listen, you learn, you follow, and you empower. And when you've done that a second time, guess what? You do it the third time. You listen, you learn, you follow, you empower. What do you do after that? Because you've done it 3 times now. You do it the 4th time. You listen, you learn, you follow, you empower. Surely you've done it 4 times now, that's a lot. Guess what? 5th time. You listen, you learn, you follow, you empower. You keep doing those things over and over again. If you stop doing any of those, you're getting on the wrong track. You have to do that continuously, never ending. And again, I said the failure to do that is at your peril, and you might be looking into coming back to an old mindset of a colonizer telling us, Indigenous peoples, what we think and do and act. And I know, at least I'm going to hope, that nobody in this room and nobody online wants that. Is that Jesus calling to confirm what I'm saying? Yes. All right. Yeah. And a part of this thing, you have to check your mindset on an ongoing basis. Is I like to ask a question from time to time. It's like, why is it when churches and organizations, when they go, say, up north to First Nations communities, why does that become a mission trip? Or even if you go do something in the north and the west, and why does that become a mission trip? See, if one church in the city here goes and, say, a church in Charleswood wants to go do some stuff in Transcona, that's not a mission trip. It's usually churches or ministries coming together to work together to collaborate. But for some reason, when it comes to us brown people, it becomes a mission trip. And I think that shows an unconscious or an embedded long way of thinking that for some reason, we Indigenous peoples, BIPOC peoples overall, are somehow still lower than the white Christians. And honestly, I think everybody here would like to do away with that attitude, but we have to check ourselves because that attitude can still slip in one way or another. And you have to be honest with yourself. It does slip in. If you can be honest with yourself, you can be aware that's happening to you, then you can easily disregard it. And when you see that happen to friends and colleagues in your life, you can challenge that respectfully in their life as well. Because we're not looking for more colonizers to conquer us. We're looking for friends, we're looking for family, we're looking for partners. Because when we have those, we can be empowered and we can make a lot of change. So I want to highlight my father. My father, as you heard earlier, was kidnapped, abducted from his mother, physically torn, ripped away from his mother, from the RCMP and the NDHs came to our community and stole our children. I don't like to say these kids attended these institutions because attend implies some kind of consent. These kids were stolen, kidnapped, abducted. And that happened to my father. Like I said, he was deeply impacted. A lot of the horrible things I'm sure you've heard about in your courses happened to my father. And it left him deeply traumatized for a long time, deeply impacted. As a result, he was not able for a long time to be a healthy individual, father, or husband. Thankfully, a bit later in life, he was able to find some healing. And as a result of coming into contact with friends and family that were not necessarily, Indigenous, some of them were in different cultures, he was able to get that healing spiritually, socially, mentally, and relationally. And that led him to play a very pivotal role in what would become the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the National Apology from the Government of Canada to Indigenous peoples. So I would encourage you, and this is a bit of a bias, if you want to know a good example of how when somebody comes and gets empowered and not told what to do, that pick up a copy of my dad's book. I happen to have some copies here if you want to buy it. But it's a good example of hearing somebody's story, somebody's journey, where they have been deeply impacted by that old attitude of doing things at him and to him, to finding a later part of life of finding people listening to him and befriending him and empowering him to essentially change this land. So again, I want to end on that. These two things that I want you to take away from it. Nothing for us, without us. And with that attitude, you listen, you learn, you follow, and you empower. And with that, I don't know how much time we have for some questions, but I think this is the question and answer period. Apparently we have lots of time. Yeah? Okay, great. So this is where, as students, you start to look away, not look at the person. You don't want to meet eyes, and hopefully you don't get called on. But this is a safe place, right? You're among friends, you're among fellow students, you're among your teachers and your faculty. This is a safe place to ask questions. And you ask questions because you want to get to know more, you want to learn, you want to grow as a person. Sure. Yeah, come on. Any questions for myself? Or, Brett? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh, he's bringing me your mic.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for a very beautiful presentation. I really enjoyed it. Very, very eye-opening. My question is, what would be the best way for our institution, Booth University College, to partner with you, the organization, and the Indigenous people in a very heavy, mutually beneficial?
Well, these days, I am a consultant and a speaker. So if you want to partner with me indirectly, by all means, hire me to come speak to your classes. By all means, I'd love to come and expand on this in different classes. That joke aside, I'd be happy to connect with anybody after this talk or through the organizers to recommend different organizations in the downtown, the north end and the west end, who do really good work, that are Indigenous-led organizations that need some support, whether through being coming down to volunteer or to give them some financial support or both. So I can give you a long list of organizations. And what you do, again, you listen, you learn, you follow, and you empower. So you go to these organizations and you do those things. You listen to what they need, what they're doing, what impact they're having. You learn from that, and you follow their lead, and together you can have impact.
With spring coming up, I'm starting to plant some seeds for vegetables, and I'm just wondering if I brought in a bunch of those plants, if that would be something that would be helpful.
Yeah, there are different organizations that that engage with food all around the city. Some that are fairly close by. There's one though they're technically not an Indigenous led, they do some really good work. It's just down the street, called a coffee table. They're always looking for food connections, and they do some really good work.
So my question is not very well formulated yet, it just came up in my mind, but as a Christian person, what is one way to challenge your fellow Christians in your church? How do you inspire them to start partnering with and empowering, and instead of doing for and treating them like a missions organization?
So if I can reframe that question, it's like how can you be a good advocate in your local church setting? Well, in general, this would fit in the church, but also it would fit anywhere, is when you hear people purposely or unpurposely speaking in an ill-informed or even a potentially racist point of view, you say something. For example, yesterday I was at my favorite coffee shop having a meeting, and the table next to us, I heard one of them use the term Eskimo. And so I had to stop on my conversation and then said, "Pardon me." And she's like, "What? You know, a football team used to be named that and all that kind of stuff." And I said, "Yes, that term is no longer accepted. It's not a term that they want to be used for their community and for their peoples, so you need to update your terminology." Thankfully, she took it well and said thank you, and she carried on with the conversation, and I carried on with mine. So if you hear, somebody in your family, somebody in your church, somebody at work, somebody at school say something stupid, say something. In love, respectfully, but say something.
Thankfully, I have an excellent boss who is very approachable, and he will allow anyone to ask him anything or challenge him on anything. But I think also what I was trying to ask is, how can you challenge people, inspire people to actually get involved in becoming an ally to Indigenous people? Like how do you formulate that in conversations with
It's not necessarily an easy question to answer because every church setting is unique, but in general, if you can speak to your church leadership, say this is something we need to get on board with, and then again, not necessarily having to lead that effort, but if it's being received well, then say, what if as a church we brought in a speaker or somebody to help us begin our reconciliation journey, our allyship. Again, it's not your job to lead it, but it's your job to empower the Indigenous voices to come in and help assist that. And you'll find that even though much harm has been done to our people, we are still willing to help people learn and grow to build that relationship.
I'll speak to my pastor and maybe we can have you come and speak.
That'd be great. I would not be opposed to it.
All right.
I think what everyone is doing here today, we're all kind of at different stages along this reconciliation journey or empowerment journey. I'm very much in the learning stage of my own reconciliation journey. Something like this is a little bit outside my comfort zone, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I'm at that point where when you hear something like Eskimo at the coffee shop, I'm at that point where I want to stand up, not for myself, but kind of for my community members, the North End community, the people that I support day in and day out. So I was sitting back there listening to Kyle, very, very informative for myself, because I'm just not quite, I don't think, at that same stage along the journey as Kyle might be. So, reaching out is great, but being here, reflecting on it, and, maybe taking that leap of faith and standing up and saying something, or coming up here and grabbing a mic if you're not quite comfortable, is a step in the right direction in my own mind. So,
yeah, and you don't have to be an expert or well-informed or years deep into your reconciliation journey to say something, right? You can say something. Like if you heard something blatantly racist, you don't have to be an expert in race relations to say something. You can just say something. But it going unchecked means that it's allowed. And so whether it's in a coffee shop or at work or at the Thanksgiving meal or whatever, because everybody has that crazy uncle, say something, right? And again, you don't have to be an expert. And everybody's at different stages of their reconciliation journey for non-Indigenous peoples to become better allies. But even as Indigenous peoples, we're all at different stages, ourselves, because tremendous harm has been done to our peoples. So not many of us don't know our traditional languages and all that kind of stuff. We're still learning who we are as Indigenous peoples, and we're all at different stages where I think of a mutual friend that the president and I have where not that long ago he discovered, though he was raised Mennonite, he's actually Métis. And so he is the beginning stages of discovering his identity. There are people who were coming out of the residential institutions, but also 60 Scoops, where that is where Indigenous children were adopted out to different families. Some of them are now coming along now just to discover who they are. So this is a journey on both sides, and so we have to show love and grace on both sides.
You'll be amazed when you're interacting with an Indigenous persons and they're offering to share knowledge with you. Spend that time to actually listen and reflect on what they're saying. I've been honored with a number of things and gifts from my community at the pharmacy, and I don't lie to them. I say I don't quite understand what the spiritual connection is or the reasoning for that. I give them time to explain. I'm invested in learning, and I want them to know that I am an ally in them. Dream catchers, smudging feathers. I got a set of two eagle feathers, and the gentleman said, that second one serves for your unborn son, right? So just learning what everything means shows that we are kind of in this with them, and we're not doing things for them, right?
Nothing for us without us.
I'm wondering about trying to bridge, both of your experiences here, the opioid crisis, the addiction crisis, et cetera, that we're seeing in our downtown neighborhood. Can we apply a class challenge to that? What are you seeing are the needs, the wants? What hasn't?
To start. So Rhoda's absolutely right. It does come down to with addictions and housing, those are things. And those are important, but it goes long before that. It goes back to the attempted genocide of our peoples. It goes back to the colonization of this land and our peoples, because it's not like we Indigenous peoples are bad people. We're disinfected people. We're not. The Creator didn't make junk, and they didn't make a mistake when they made us. The Creator made us the same as they made every other people on this planet. A lot of the social traumas and ills that we have, that we're facing, are because of generations of harm done to us. And so the unhoused epidemic, the addictions epidemic, all the different social concerns that we're facing, or we are being faced by Indigenous peoples, come from generations of this land, this government, this Christianity trying to wipe us off the face of the planet. And it has done great harm. And this is the outcomes of that. And so it's not like we're just bad people. It's done, it has been done to us. And now, our society, though you may not have been responsible for the harm done, you may also be fairly new to this land, but if you're choosing to come to this land and be a part of this country, you're choosing to be part of the solution. I often tell this story over this, give you this example. Let's say you buy a housing company, or a roofing company, so that they make roofs. Build new roofs, fix roofs, all that kind of stuff. This company that says it's been in business for 100 years, you bought it 5 years ago. You learned, though, when you bought it, that the previous owners, generations of owners, did shoddy work. They did bad work. They cut corners, and they did bad work. So now all these past customers are coming to say, hey, you need to fix the work that you did. It's crumbling, it's falling apart, all that kind of stuff. You can't say, hey, I've only owned this company for a couple of years. Don't bother me with it. It's not my problem. No, you bought the company. You bought the good and the bad with it. So if you are a Canadian or you're a newcomer building a life here, you're buying into Canada, and you need to be part of the solution. And again, what is that solution? You listen, you learn, you follow, and you empower. And then, but the fact is, there are some strong social ills, concerns that we have, so that's why people like Brett and his colleagues, see it practically, and there are some things that I'm sure you have some insight with this as well.
Well, yeah, I think it's important to recognize that some of these health inequities that we see are actually caused by us, and we're intentional at a time, right? People just make the assumption that because someone is Indigenous or they're part of the BIPOC population, that they're the reason for that disparity. It's actually, if you educate yourself, right, a result of colonization and other things. So we are the ones who are responsible for that healthcare gap, essentially. What we are trying to do now is reconcile it as much as we can. Part of that is education. We have seen a lot of change in the addictions care. Historically, it was Western medicine. Here you go, good luck. We're gonna give you the Western medicine way, and you guys can hopefully find your way out. A lot of the organizations out there who are focused on helping Indigenous populations have, I guess, reconnected themselves with their spirituality and their culture and their history. And in community, we've actually seen some of the best outcomes with our community members who go down that path of reconnection spiritually, holistically, culturally. So it's really great to see that, and we're actually seeing, like I said, better outcomes for that, as opposed to just thinking, hey, it's Western medicine, this works for us, it's going to work for everyone. So kind of an understanding that everyone needs each treatment in a slightly different manner.
I think we have time for, say, 2 or 3 more questions. 2 questions.
Great insight. I just wanted to ask, so in terms of being on the line and also, doing the listen, empowering, and following, are there current initiatives that one can, volunteering to be able to, volunteer with Northway Family Center to be able to be part of this objective?
Yeah, sure. Great question. Where you're basically working, you get involved, where can you volunteer? If I understood you correctly. Some great places that are often looking for a lot of help and volunteer people power is Mama Bear Clan. They walk the streets of North Point Douglas. They have food, water, keep an eye out for different safety issues and that kind of stuff. They're a great organization. You can also get your steps in as well. Yeah, places like a coffee table, like I said, which is down the street, they serve 3 meals a day. They're always looking for help. There's a lot of places down Soccer Gallery as well. Like I said, I can happily get you a list of all the different places.
I think something that's near and dear to my heart that is quite easy. I guess I'll ask a question. By show of hands, does anyone carry a nasal Narcan or naloxone kit on them day to day?
In the car.
So ideally, we get to a point where everyone's hand goes up in the air. At our location, we dispense over 3,000 doses of naloxone a year. I'm very, very confident that every single one of those is used. It's a life-saving medication. We should all take it upon ourselves to learn how to use it, when to use it, and keep a kid on us.
Do you provide training?
Absolutely. So that's a huge part of what we do. So that would be a very easy thing that we can leave here implementing that. The injectable kits are publicly available. The nasal kits can be prescribed by a pharmacist for an Indigenous person for personal use or for someone who they know may be at risk of an opioid overdose. So it's super important. You can procure a kit as an Indigenous individual, not for yourself, but for someone who may be at risk. We have a duty to them, to those who are using, to allow them to continue to use if that's where they're at, but use safely so that they can maybe wake up the next morning and decide, hey, today's the day where I'm going to try and make a change. If we don't get them to tomorrow, they don't have that choice. So that's the problem we through you guys, and encourage you to reach out to us. We can help you with that. But
We got time for one last question. All right, well, I'd like to end on one last point before we pass it back to the organizers. So I often get asked, what are some other practical steps that you can do? So yes, volunteering, finding a place to volunteer is absolutely. Financially supporting the variable, absolutely. But also the gain your knowledge, to become a better ally is a very important step. Make sure you are reading widely. Don't just read people who are white and Western. Make sure you're reading from BIPOC authors, Indigenous authors. Read our stories. You can buy our books, you can go to the library, you can buy my dad's book. But you can also, there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube and on the internet as well. But also things like when you're consuming news, I'm sure many of you are like me, I read my news on my phone. Like CBC has an Indigenous section. That's in the section, a section of news from an Indigenous point of view by Indigenous reporters. APTN also has a news app as well. That's an Indigenous organization doing the news, world-class news through an Indigenous lens. So when you read the news, read from our perspective as well. Watch our shows, read our stories, come to our plays. But you are also welcome to attend things like powwows and different ceremonies. You're most welcome. You might feel nervous, but you are welcome. Come, watch, participate, learn. And there's many ways to expand your horizons, expand your knowledge, to start your personal reconciliation and your ally journey.
Thank you again, Brett and Kyle. Huge impact. And again, this is part of a place like this, part of learning, and there's a recognition, just as as a Christian pastor, there's a recognition that the church has done significant harms, and like you say, we cannot say, oh, it wasn't me. We still have a part to play. And another thing is education has done huge harms. And we cannot excuse that saying it's not us. Even in some of the more recent books I've been reading from Indigenous authors, a recognition with a lot of social workers in the room, social work has done significant harms and been part of the systems rather than part of the solutions. And so these things are not said to make us feel guilty or to feel shame, but they are said to help us learn and figure out how to follow and to empower others. I think at a place like this, out of any type of place, a place like this that is focused not only on learning, but really has a key in that understanding of the importance of relationship. Relationship, you don't learn relationship, you don't grow relationship by reading a book. You grow relationship by being with one another and showing up and learning from one another, learning how to listen, not going with a savior complex, and I think that's an important one, especially for those moving into any people-centered service work or ministry. So we have to put aside guilt we may feel, shame we may feel because we don't know how much we should know, and say, how do I start? How do I begin to move forward? And I want to thank you too, again, just for being here and helping us at whatever stage we are on the journey. And we have a long way to go, but we will get there together. So thank you for that. Let me close this in prayer. Creator God, we thank you for this time that we've had. Lord, we thank you for how your Spirit through others enlightens us, teaches us, and helps us to recognize the significance of one another's story and how those stories have shaped and both positively and negatively people and ourselves over long histories. Lord, we come recognizing and confessing our part in those stories and pray that together we might find ways to move forward and to listen better, to learn better, to follow better, and to empower better. I pray your blessing upon these two as they have come to share their hearts and their service and the things that are needed from us to hear and to learn. And so blessings upon them. And in the challenge we have heard from these two gentlemen, would it stick with us and move us to grow in relationship towards you and towards others for the good of all, we pray. We offer it to you in Christ's name. Amen. Thank you very much. Did you have anything else to say?
Just go down to the bistro and enjoy the wild rice soup that they're offering. And,
Time for fellowship,
yeah,
being together.
and I'm hoping that this is actually, are you going to stick around for lunch with us? Excellent. So they will be down in the bistro if you want